So this is an extremely important video for anyone who's looking to run the AUG as their main weapon. And on top of that, the AUG has gotten really popular recently because everyone thinks it's the new meta. So in this video, we're going to break down each individual attachment and letting you know exactly what they do. And then at the end of this video, we're going to give you the best class setup. If you enjoy videos like this, weapon stat breakdowns, weapon comparisons, and overall tips and tricks for Warzone, subscribe to the channel as we're trying to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers. And on top of that, click the link in the description and follow us over on Twitch. Before we get into each individual attachment this time, I do want to show how we've done some of our testing. A lot of people think that we get these numbers randomly, or we take them from like true game data and stuff like that. So I do want to show how we've gotten some of the data. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but on the screen, what you'll see is us testing for aim down sight speeds for the ammunition attachments, and also the reload times as well for the ammunition attachments. So for the aim down sight speeds, what you're looking at is the weapon mount animation and when that pops up. So that's when you start your aim down sight, and then once the background stops moving is when the aim down sight animation is finished, and that is your timing in between those 2 points. You then do a very similar thing for reload times as well. So you wait for the magazine to go from 1 bullet down to 0 bullets, and you start your animation from there. And then once the reload animation is completed, and then the magazine shows full again, on that exact frame is where the animation is finished, and that is your full reload time. So if we get slightly different answers to JGod or True Game Data, it means that they're calculating their reload time slightly differently, and on top of that, they might actually be using at higher frame rates to test. We're only using 60 FPS here. So the first set of attachments I want to show you is the muzzles. Now we're going to go into the muzzles and go through their pros and cons as well. But before I do that, I want to show you the recoil chart you get with each one of these attachments. Now they all do state they give you some kind of vertical recoil control. They also give you other pros and cons as well. And the only one that doesn't state that it gives you vertical recoil is the silencer, but we also tested that one as well just in case. On the screen now, you will see the recoil chart. Now what we did was we stood about 15 meters away and tested all of these attachments, and we fired 3 bursts vertically upwards just to see how they would match up against each other. So on the very left, you have the base weapon, then we have the muzzle brake, then the flash guard, then the silencer, the infantry compensator, the SOCOM eliminator, and then the agency suppressor. Now in my opinion, the best looking one here is definitely the agency suppressor. Not only is the vertical recoil a bit better because all the bullets are usually tighter together, but also it seems as if there's less horizontal recoil as well with that. Whereas if you look at something like the SOCOM eliminator, it looks like there's a lot of horizontal recoil with that gun. The infantry compensators also did a pretty decent job. And if you can only count 8 bullets on each of these bursts here, that means that 2 of the bullets are fired in the exact same spot, which is definitely a benefit here, because what that means is the gun is firing in the same spot twice, and that is making it very accurate. In my opinion, if you had to pick out of the attachments listed on screen just now, the best ones would definitely be the agency suppressor for sure, and then the infantry compensator would be a close second. So the main thing you're looking for here is how tight the bullets are together. It's not exactly what the recoil pattern is, but how close the bullets are together within each burst. And then also, does it have a lot of side-to-side recoil? So that's what the barrel attachments look like in terms of recoil, but let's quickly go through all the pros and cons here. So the muzzle brake has the pro of vertical recoil control, like we've just mentioned, but it doesn't have any cons. The flash guard states that it also gives you aiming stability. Now, we've not actually had time to test this, but if this is true, which it doesn't seem to be, I tried using this attachment and it doesn't really look like it helps all that much, even if it does. This could be an amazing attachment for the AUG and the M16, because idle sway on both of those guns is pretty ridiculous. Then for the silencer, it says it gives you a con to bullet velocity, so you definitely do not want to use this attachment. Then for the infantry compensator, it does say it gives you a con to horizontal recoil control. Now this doesn't sound like it's all that true, because if you look at the recoil chart, it has one of the better horizontal recoils out of all the attachments here. The SOCOM eliminator does state that it gives you a con to horizontal recoil control, as well as shooting movement speed and ADS fire move speed. The horizontal recoil control con is definitely true. You can see that on the recoil chart that we've shown you earlier on. But the other ones are definitely going to give you a con as well. But this also states it gives you aiming stability as well. But again, this is kind of hard to test, and we've not really done full testing on that yet. And then lastly, you've got the agency silencer, which says it gives you a con to effective damage range. Now, on the screen just now, what you'll see is a screenshot taken from the True Game Data website, and that shows that there is no damage drop-off for the AUG. And what that means is this con to effective damage range doesn't actually affect the AUG at all. Because it doesn't have any damage drop-off points, it can't really affect the damage range. So the Agency Silencer here, in my opinion, is definitely the best attachment. So the next set of attachments that we looked at was the Underbarrels. Now looking at the Underbarrels here, the only few that help with recoil is the front grip, the Field Agent grip, and the SFOD speed grip. The other ones help with like movement speed or hipfire accuracy of some kind, which you've not actually tested yet. But in terms of recoil control, I will bring up the recoil chart on screen just now for those 3 attachments. So what you'll see on the screen just now is again that same 3 bursts at a 15 meter distance. I know it says 5 meters on the screen just now, but it's actually 15 meters that we tested this. The base weapon is on the very left. We then have the front grip, the Field Agent grip, and lastly the SFOD speed grip. And what you can see here is that the base weapon has a lot of horizontal recoil, but these attachments definitely help a lot with that. So regardless of whether you're using the front grip, the Field Agent grip, or the SFOD speed grip, you're going to get that improvement to horizontal recoil for sure. But then you can see that the Field Agent does help a little bit with that vertical recoil, as a lot of the bullets are tightly packed together. In my opinion, the SFOD speed grip is the best because it helps with the horizontal recoil the most. But you could also argue the Field Agent grip is a really good attachment here too, because a lot of the bullets are landing in basically the exact same spot. So this one is definitely going to be down to personal preference between the last 2 attachments. The Field Agent is better when it comes to making the bullets tightly compact together, and then the SFOD speed grip just negates a lot of that horizontal recoil as much as possible. So that's personal preference on which one you would choose. Now looking at the pros and cons for each of these attachments, and we'll even go through the ones that we didn't test yet. So for the front grip, we have horizontal recoil control with no cons. So even if you're not really too sure what attachment to use, I would definitely go ahead and use the front grip. It does help quite a bit with the horizontal recoil, but it doesn't give you any cons. The Infiltrator grip does say that it gives you sprinting movement speed, hipfire accuracy, and then it hurts your movement speed. Hipfire accuracy is not really too important with burst rifles because you shouldn't really need hipfire with this all that often. And then sprinting movement speed again is not really too important either because you should be using this at longer ranges. Patrol grip helps with sprint and movement speed, would not use this attachment at all. And then the movement speed and hipfire accuracy that you get with the Bruiser grip is a decent attachment overall because you don't get any cons. But again, like I said, you don't really need that hipfire accuracy with the Bruiser grip. Moving over to the Field Agent, like I said, it helps with vertical as well as horizontal recoil control. As you can see, it does it really, really well. And then it gives you a con to your firing movement speed and your aim down sight firing movement speed. So this is going to hurt your overall movement speed when you're shooting your gun. Now, at the ranges you should be using the AUG, it shouldn't really be too much of an issue. And that's why the Field Agent is probably one of the best attachments for this gun. But if you do like to keep your overall movement as fast as possible, then the SFOD speed grip is probably the better option for you because it gives you the horizontal recoil control, which is the best at. It gives you faster sprint and movement speed, but it does hurt your kind of running movement speed. So that is all the underbarrel attachments, but let's take a look at the barrels themselves. And the main thing we tested here was for bullet velocity. Now, a lot of these barrels do state they give you a damage range reduction and all that kind of stuff, but as we stated before, damage range can't really be affected with the AUG anyway, so the only thing we need to test here is bullet velocity and also fire rate, because fire rate is very important. So we tested bullet velocity and fire rate for every single barrel, even though the barrels stated that they don't change fire rate. And what you'll see on screen just now is the bullet velocities as well as the fire rates for all of these guns. And you can see that the bullet velocity for the rapid fire barrel is 608 meters per second. And that is the base bullet velocity for the AUG now, because they did buff that in the recent update to match it with the M16. The rate of fire for this is 537 rounds per minute, which is a bit faster than the base rate of fire. The base rate of fire is 497 rounds per minute. Then we look at the Cavalry Lancer, and that increases your bullet velocity up to 763 meters per second. It does not affect your rate of fire, of course, because it does state that on screen. And like I said, it does increase your bullet velocity quite a bit. Then we've got the Strike Team barrel. Now this actually does increase your bullet velocity to 902 meters per second. Even though it doesn't state it in game, it does increase your bullet velocity, and it also increases your fire rate as well, which it does state. and that's to 545 rounds per minute. Now this turns out to be the best barrel to use, but I'll explain that in just a moment. Next, moving on to the titanium barrel, we then have a bullet velocity of 562 meters per second. So this actually hurts your bullet velocity, but it does give you a slightly faster fire rate at 568 rounds per minute. Then moving on to the match grade barrel. Now this is the base bullet velocity, and so is the task force barrel, and then it also has the base rate of fire as well. So overall, the strike team barrel is the best because it gives you the fastest possible bullet velocity, and it also gives you a decent fire rate. Now if you want the fastest possible fire rate, then you need to use the titanium barrel, but that hurts your bullet velocity. But like I said, if you want the kind of best overall barrel, the strike team is the way to go here, because increasing your fire rate is going to reduce your time to kill. So let's go over the other pros and cons of these attachments to see whether or not they're viable for other reasons. So the rapid fire barrel does state it gives you a fire rate increase, which it does, and it gives you no cons, which it seems to do. So that's decent if you want to increase your fire rate but not increase your bullet velocity, which I don't really know why you wouldn't want to do that. Next, we have the Cavalry Lancer. Now, it says it increases your effective damage range, which it cannot do, as we stated earlier on in this video. It gives you faster bullet velocity, which it does, and it increases your strafe speed. Now, we haven't actually tested that part of it. We did, however, test the cons, and it does increase your vertical as well as horizontal recoil control, and I wouldn't really use this attachment at all. Going on to the strike team barrel now, this gives you the second fastest fire rate out of all the barrels. It does give you the fastest bullet velocity out of all the barrels. It says it gives you a con to your effective damage range, which again, it can't do. And it does hurt your aiming stability, which is the only issue with this barrel here. The titanium barrel says it gives you a faster fire rate, which it absolutely does. This is the fastest firing barrel out of the lot. And then it gives you a con to effective damage range. So technically this isn't really a con because it can't hurt your effective damage range. And like I said, this does hurt your bullet velocity though, so this is why you wouldn't use a titanium barrel. Then we've got the match grade barrel, which extends your damage range, which it doesn't do, and then it hurts your sprinting movement speed. So this is only going to hurt your sprinting movement speed. It's not going to do anything else. It's not going to extend your damage range or anything like that. And then we've got the task force barrel, which extends your damage range, but doesn't give you any cons. As we can see here, the strike team barrel is the best because it does give you the best pros and not too many cons. It does hurt your aiming stability, but you're just going to need to get used to that because it is the best barrel out of the bunch. So the next set of attachments we actually tested was the rear grips. Now the rear grips are a really weird one, and we got some of our information from True Game Data for this because he actually tested all the rear grips for a lot of different weapons and came out to the conclusion that a lot of them are actually hurting your aim down sight time. Now, we actually mentioned this in our Mac 10 video yesterday, that some of the wraps were actually hurting the aim down sight time. Now, the reason why we didn't get exact values is because we're testing at 60 frames per second, like I mentioned earlier on in this video, and he's actually testing at 120 FPS, so you can actually see kind of smaller differences in terms of aim down sight times and stuff like that. So on the screen now, you will see the aim down sight times for all of the attachments. And the base aim down sight time for the AUG is actually 267 milliseconds, which we calculated with the kind of strategy that we did at the start of the video. And then for the speed tape, you get an aim down sight time of 292 milliseconds, which is hurting your aim down sight time. The drop shot wrap gives you an aim down sight time of 301 milliseconds, which again is hurting your aim down sight time. The field tape doesn't do anything to your aim down sight time. Then we've got an aim down sight time of 338 milliseconds for the SARS jungle grip. And then we've got a 330 millisecond aim down sight time for the last two attachments. Now, all of these attachments are completely useless, so I would not recommend using any of these at the moment until they fix it. So like I said in the Mac 10 video, do not use any rear grips. They've not fixed them in the previous update. So the last and final attachments we tested here was the ammunition attachments, and what we tested was all the reload times for each one of the attachments, and then we also tested the aim down sight times because that's the only cons that they state they give you is a con to your aim down sight. Now you can see that on screen just now, so you can see that the 45 round drum gives you a reload time of 2.5 seconds. The base reload time for the AUG is 2.4 seconds. And then the aim down sight time gets increased actually to 300 milliseconds. So even though it doesn't state a con to the aim down sight time, it does give you a con to your aim down sight time to 300 milliseconds because the base aim down sight time, if you can recall, is 267 milliseconds. Then for the jungle style mags, you've got a reload time of 2.4 seconds and it does not hurt your aim down sight time. The reload time for the 45 round speed mags is 2 seconds, so this is the fastest reload time. And then it does hurt your aim down sight time again to 300 milliseconds. The reload time on the Stanag 54 round drum is 2.5 seconds, and it hurts your aim down sight time at 317 milliseconds. Then the reload time on the SAS mag clamp is 2.3 seconds, and the aim down sight time for that is 300 milliseconds. And then the reload time on the Salvo 54 round fast mags is 2 seconds, which again is just as fast as the 45 round speed mag. And the aim down sight time is the absolute worst with this at 367 milliseconds. In my opinion, the best attachment here is the 45 round speed mags. It doesn't hurt your aim down sight time nearly as much as the other attachments, but it does give you a huge bonus to your reload time at 2 seconds. So that's why I would go with that attachment. For the AUG, you don't really need the largest possible mags. You can manage your shots very easily with the AUG as well as the M16. So at this point in the video, we've done all of our testing on each of the attachments. We haven't really tested any of the laser attachments or the stock attachments, but we will cover those in just a moment. But what I want to do first is add on the attachments that we have recommended already. So for the muzzle, like I said, the agency silencer seemed to be the best. And once they do fix the agency silencer to give you the faster bullet velocity and damage range, you won't really need to change this attachment anyway. So the agency silencer is definitely the best muzzle attachment. For the barrel, the strike team barrel was the best. It gave you the fastest fire rate as well as the fastest bullet velocity. Then for the underbarrel, like I said, is between the field agent and the SVOD speed grip. It just kind of depends on personal preference. I do believe more people would go towards the field agent grip here. Then for ammunition, it was the 45 round speed mags. So there we have the base kind of attachments and stuff like that that you want to be using. Now you could next opt for a laser if you don't mind using the base sights on the AUG. You could go for like a laser here or even a stock. If I was going to use a stock, I would use the SAS combat stock for sure. And the final stock is a great option too. I think it's the Raider stock. I've not unlocked it yet, but I would definitely still choose the SAS combat because the Raider stock usually hurts your hip fire the most. But in my opinion, the best attachment to use here would definitely be the Axial Arms 3x optic. And then make sure to get rid of that parallax you're using. So you want to use this initial reticle that you've got right now, the default one. The rest give you that kind of parallax effect that True Game Data found out. So you do want to use the first one. It gives you a good balance between not having parallax and giving you a clean optic. Now that is the best AUG class setup. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave us a like as it took us quite a while to put this video together. Again, similar to yesterday's video, this takes a long time to test. On top of that, if you're new to the channel, subscribe as we're trying to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers and we want to reach that goal very soon. On top of that, click the link in the description and follow us over on Twitch. We will be live streaming either later on today or tomorrow. We've just been really busy making videos and trying to get out all the stats for all of these new weapon changes. And thank you very much for watching.